Hey everyone, this is Karina Denike from Dancehall Crashers and NOFX, and you're watching Crash and Bleed.
So, Karina,
Yes.
is it just Karina from Dancehall Crashers now since NoFX have ended? Can we still say Karina from NoFX?
You can still say NOFX.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
So, what was the first love for you? Was it punk rock or was it ska and reggae?
Oh, very good question. Probably probably ska and reggae because, I grew up in England and grew up in Cambridge in England, and I had an older brother who was into punk rock. And but in England there's big Caribbean and obviously ska scene, and one of my first loves, I think, was, kind of new wave and ska and reggae stuff. But my parents listened to a lot of reggae, a lot of Toots and Bob Marley and Desmond Decker and so on. So I would say that kind of listening to the harmonies of the Wailers and Toots was definitely like a big love for me. And then seeing Althea and Donna on Top of the Pops was kind of a big moment in time for me, where just seeing two women up there having fun, doing something that was sort of a bit playful, but also great musically. And I just love that song so much, and the great keyboard parts. And I think that was kind of a big jump into, thinking about that kind of music as something that might be inspiring for me to do. But then, my brother was a punk rocker, my dad was a punk rocker a little bit. So we used to jump around to Sex Pistols and, Anarchy in the UK and Pretty Vacant and all that stuff with my dad. I know you were asking about that a video, and I have to find it. I'm not quite sure where it is. Um, I should have it on a file so to keep it. But so I would say a little bit of both, probably ska reggae, and then, once I got into the Specials, which was basically my favorite band of all time, as a young person, that I think combining the two styles was kind of perfect marriage as far as I'm concerned. And then when I moved to the States, I got into other music as well anyway, but coming back to ska punk kind of combination was seemed really obvious to me.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
so since you're from the UK, did we invent punk rock? Should we just take credit for that?
Of course we did. I know. The debate continues. I mean, in my opinion, yes, we did. Luckily, there are no Americans on this call to fight with us. Although now I do have dual citizenship, so I'm a bit divided.
Okay.
No, probably New Yorkers. I don't know. Probably New York scene.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard, isn't it?
Well, okay, so I know you don't like questions like this, but I ask all my musical guests, who would you say was the most iconic punk rocker, somebody that just embodied everything about what punk rock should be for you?
Oh wow. I don't know. I mean, that is a really hard question. I hate these number ones. Like, pick the one person. Susie Sue for me was a big one, because she just kind of had the goth punk thing kind of embodied, in my opinion, at the time when I was younger. Obviously Debbie Harry too, which, I mean, it's all kind of new wave punk. So I don't know. I mean, I was drawn to female artists, obviously, but Jesus, that's a really hard question for me. Female musicians were definitely a big, iconic characters for me, because I could see something that I could do. And uh just to be a woman in punk rock, I mean, even Aria in the Slits and stuff, like, to me that was kind of the epitome of, like, being able to say fuck you to the system a little bit more, as a woman, and being a woman in sort of punk or any of those music scenes at that time, especially, but even now, that, you have to have a little bit extra punk rock attitude, like fuck you, to just even be around, those stages at the time. It was pretty aggressive. And so I don't know. I'm terrible at these questions.
Well, we haven't had anyone on the show say a female punk yet. Leslie from Tribe 8 said Wendy O. Williams, but then she sort of backtracked
Right.
on it a little bit, so we never really got an answer.
I was
So
thinking Wendy.
this is your chance.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think Susie Sue is pretty iconic. I'm gonna have to say that. I know that there's some problems with. I wouldn't always back everything she's represented and covered necessarily, but to me, as a sort of young person, like she she definitely felt like it was making a bigger statement than other people. I know she's not the first necessarily. Joan Jett, another one. Again, kind of rock and roll, punk rock, but I think that is the thing is you can't like I don't like these kind of very small windows of music anyway, and I think that Susie Soon is just fucking brilliant. And whether or not I always agree with everything she's done, she was like representing something very special to me. Being in a band with men as well, so it's not an all girl band, which I also appreciate. Obviously, I've been in all girl bands, and that's an amazing thing to do. But uh, there was something about that, seeing her and Debbie Harry just kind of like being who they are. And so I'm going to put Susie Sue up there, I guess. Much to
Uh,
Fat Mike's chagrin. Fat Mike does not like.
okay, there
Why
we
not?
go. We got
Why
one.
not? Good for you, Susie.
So, how important was the Operation Ivy record for you when that came out? Were you in the UK when that came out, or did you find that when you
Yeah.
moved?
No, I came to it later. When I moved to the States, I did not know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that must have been like an explosion
Um,
of discovery for you.
yeah, I mean, it was definitely because it was, I grew up in when I moved to the States, I moved to Berkeley, which is where they're from. And I actually lived very close to Gilman, the Street Project, which is, this great kind of all ages co-op club. So it was run by kids. It was run by, I mean, it was just a total, free for all ages club. And that's where they were based. And I mean, I would see Tim Armstrong all the time. We used to call him Lint and Matt, and, just at warehouse parties. And I mean, it was just, riding around on his bike everywhere in Berkeley. So I kind of got into them after kind of knowing who he was, just as a local musician person. Like, I didn't really know that Operation Ivy kind of the big deal until afterwards. So um yeah, so I wasn't really quite as into them, because I was still stuck on kind of English bands that I had grown up with. And then kind of realizing, how big they were and how important they were. That came later.
Yeah. Well, on the subject of importance, I mean, I don't want to use the word iconic again, but what important records like ska punk albums come to mind automatically for you?
I mean, it's always going to be the Specials is going to be the one to me. That's always bigger to me. And like I said, Operation Ivy and Fishbone was like later kind of realization after being in the States. But I mean, the first Specials record is always going to be the one for me. It's just it kind of it means everything, because it's also, I was in England at that time in the 80s. So um Brixton riots, we had the National Front was driving around my neighborhood with, speakers on top of the cars and all that. So it was very, very prevalent. And my dad lived in London. I lived in Cambridge. So I was in London a lot. He lived in Brixton for a while. He lived in East End. So I was kind of experiencing, ghost town, all of that stuff was happening. So to me, it's like kind of seared into my brain. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Like, I didn't want to have kids when I was younger, because, lyrics, like, done too much too young. All those kinds of that whole album to me is like every single song on that album is just like seared into me, and I love the combination. I was just like obsessed with them still.
Well, I wanted to give you a chance to say a couple of words about Kim from the Muffs, because I found out on Krista Makes a Podcast that you're actually a big Muffs fan.
Yeah.
And clearly, Kim is one of the greatest punk rock vocalists of all time. So, can we get a couple of thoughts on Kim?
Yeah, we did some touring with her, with the Muffs, and we were also kind of on a similar we were on the same label. They were managing, the people that were managing them had started a record label called 510, which is what Dancehall Crashers was on before we got back onto like the fat record circuit. We did some touring with Kim and the Muffs, and she was just fucking brilliant. I love her songwriting. Obviously, her voice is like amazing, and she was a prickly character. She was really tough. There's some great stories. I mean, I was pretty pretty hardcore stories of her, like, at that time we were still getting a lot of like show us your tits and all that kind of stuff on stage all the time. And I mean, this is so disgusting, but it's so funny. She was on her period. She's put her hand up her skirt and just was like, got some blood and like wiped it on some guy in the front row. And I was just like, fuck yeah, fuck you to that front guy. Like, you just like that is the epitome of like, fuck you. And so just, badass, it's like something that like most women would just like, I mean, of course, and men would just be so fucking horrified. And I just loved that she would do crazy ass shit. She would get into fights with people. She was pretty hardcore. And, she was friends with, well, not friends, rather. She was in a big battle with the Courtney Love, and Courtney is notoriously difficult and problematic. Anyone I know that has known her has so many stories, but she named Blonder and Blonder. That record is named after. One day, I guess Courtney saw her and was like, "Oh, Blonder and Blonder, like you're getting blonder and blonder," like in some sort of comment to kind of get her, like she was progressing, trying to like get more famous by bleaching her hair blonder and blonder or something. So she named that record after that comment. She's super tough, really mean, but in kind of a great way, obviously. And like I said, she would get into like brawls with people, and I kind of love that about her. Always super nice to me, and we had a great touring experience. But she was a badass, and is very much missed.
Yeah. Well, we had Ronnie on the show, and he was telling us some crazy stories about Kim, including pouring water on a cop's shoes.
Oh yeah, I know that story. She was a wild woman. Like, it was intense to be in a band with her, I'm sure. I mean, obviously she was very close friends with them, but it was like touring with her was like pretty eye-opening to see her just be like, fuck everybody. She had that in her voice, and she could be that person, and it was kind of great. It was impressive to be a little bit like, oh shit, look out. She's, don't fuck with Kim.
Well, in preparation for this, I pretty much watched every single podcast appearance that you'd made. Appearance. Let me get my words out.
Yeah.
Appearance that you'd made. So I think I know what kinds of questions to avoid. But one thing I don't remember hearing you talk about was, were you joining bands before Dancehall Crashers, like age 15, 16? Anything notable there?
Nothing notable. I was in bands when I was 15, just some local stuff. And while I was in high school and playing shows, but nothing that anyone's ever heard of, or nothing notable. No.
And did you pick up an instrument like back at in those days?
Yeah, I mean, I played keyboards. I played keyboards in Dancehall Crashers. I mean, not in Dancehall Crashers, in NOFX, not in Dancehall Crashers.
No, I mean, we know that. But
millions of keyboards. I play this thing, which is really fun, which is a chord organ. I play a bunch of keyboards in NOFX, but also, I mean, I write a lot of music, so I'll play some vibraphone, which I've played on NOFX albums, and I have a beautiful set of vibes in the other room. And I played it on some like Mattersville. I'm playing it on that. I'm playing it on a bunch of stuff that I did for Home Street Home with Mike. So some keyboards. I'm a pretty horrible guitar player. So
well, I mean,
no,
but back then as a teen, did you pick up the keys?
Yeah, I took piano lessons and all that when I was younger, and then I moved around a lot when I moved to the States, so I wasn't able to keep it up. So I got kind of back into it a little bit later again, but I'm not amazing. I'm no fancy organ ska player, which is what I would like to be, but I can mess around a bit.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's all you need. That's punk enough.
Yeah, exactly. I play instruments that you can play like a couple of notes and it sounds pretty cool, you know.
Well, did you ever get to meet Ingrid back then? Because I know she was one of the vocalists before you joined Dancehall Crashers. Like, who was she as a person? Did she go on to join other bands, or let's show Ingrid some love?
Ingrid, yeah, I definitely met her. We knew each other for a while. It's a small scene here. It's a big, there's a big scooter scene. Kind of, there's like a mod scene, which is like the real '60s kind of enthusiasts, which is like the Loved Ones. There's a bunch of great bands that were doing that kind of thing. And then there's the scooter scene and like the rude girl, rude boy scene. So it's kind of the skinhead scene. So a bunch of kind of crossover there. But Ingrid was kind of more in the scooter scene, and my younger brother was was a scooter boy, had his Lambrettas and his Vespas. So we were kind of in that group of people, and so I knew Ingrid through that, and we're friends. She's lovely, and so I did know her before I joined, and then she decided to leave, but she was still friends with some of the same groups of people that we all knew. So yeah, I don't know. She didn't do a whole lot of music after. I think she was in one band afterwards, but I don't remember what they're called. And basically, I think she's not really doing music anymore, as far as I know.
Ah, okay. So, would you say that you and Elyse became best friends kind of instantly? Like, what was that partnership like? Like, how do we stay in this band for such a long time?
We I mean, I got sort of asked if I wanted to come, whatever, try out, because Ingrid had left and they had kind of at this point become like two female singers. People were stopping in and guesting maybe on male vocals here and there, but just kind of when I got in there, I knew how to sing harmonies, and we just clicked immediately musically. Like we sort of, it worked right away. It's like, oh yeah, we can figure out parts really well, really easily, and not have too much discussion about what to do, just kind of find harmonies. So I mean, I think we became good friends right away, but mostly it was really a kind of a musical just ease that happened. And
Were you bonding over
and
favourite bands back then?
we were into a fair amount of the same bands. Like she kind of liked, like some random things that I liked, like the Bell Stars, and there's she had some good musical kind of connections. Haircut 100, haha. We liked them at the time. Terrible bands. But we had some, I was like, oh, okay, she kind of gets the English thing, because that was really my background. But then of course she had the kind of California, Fishbone, Op Ivy, a bunch of American bands that I was becoming more familiar with, but maybe didn't know as well. Things. So we kind of had different, with some different, influences. I'm a total Beatles fanatic, so that's kind of where I got a lot of the harmony ideas as well. So yeah, I mean, I think we became good friends easily. We had our own little sort of influences, and then a lot of joint, favorites, B-52s, whatever it might be. Yeah, I mean, I think I was more into, yeah, some English, more obscure stuff than she might have been, but we had a lot of crossover. So
Well, how is it that the major labels picked up on this band? Because, like, not to be insulting, it's not really a band that you hear too many people talk about, like, especially in the UK.
yeah,
But, like, I've got everything that you've ever done.
okay,
But,
nice.
but yeah, how did the major labels get involved?
So at that moment, there was a big interest in, especially in the East Bay and Bay Area scene. It became a thing. So Operation Ivy had been, kind of, they weren't together at that moment, but he was starting Rancid, but it was still not, they were still not out then. But Green Day was just blowing up, right? So Green Day had done tons of footwork, and they're from Gilman scene, Berkeley scene. Um, and they were all major labels were kind of going crazy, and like looking for the next sort of like Green Day, and then they started getting into ska and kind of seeing what was out there. So we were part of this Bay Area kind of wave of bands that were getting pretty big. We had a record out already with Moon Ska, and the ska scene was getting bigger and bigger, in a sort of an underground way. And so Americans know about us pretty well. The English scene was a bit smaller as far as like picking up on the third wave ska thing in general, because they had the second wave, and that's bigger. And Madness and Specials and Selectors always going to be, Dance Craze is going to be what we, English people care about a little bit more, right? But in the States, things were picking up. There was an interest. So major labels were coming to shows. We got signed at Sprawl Plaza, which is just a we had a big show at the university outside, and labels came to that. And then we did some major label things in LA too. But they were going all around and looking for the next, the band that could kind of represent this kind of punk ska sound that was kind of taking off. So yeah, Green Day I would say would be, the first band that took, brought the interest into everything. But I mean, NOFX, who didn't sign with a major, but everybody was getting signed. We knew every single man was getting signed. All the bands that opened for us, Blink, like AFI. I mean, we have like, the list is ridiculous of all the bands that opened for us that became huge. No Doubt, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's ridiculous. We were part of a little bit more careful about how we would be represented once we were in that world, but we didn't go straight to a major. We went to 510/MCA, which was Jeff and Elliot, um, who ran 510 Records. They were Green Day's managers, so they were also, and they were dealing with Jawbreaker and the Muffs. So it was kind of a whole scene, and that's where the major labels started checking out what was going on. It's like, oh, you're selling this many independent records, you have this many people coming to your shows, they've this crazy, interest, like your shows are selling out, and people are really excited, and so they were coming and checking out groups.
Well, since you mentioned Blink there, that's another band. I think they were on
Yes.
MCA the same year that you guys were. Were you aware that you'd made it into one of their songs? That song, Josie.
Yeah.
What was the
Yeah.
band reaction like to that at the time?
It was just funny. I mean, we were very good friends with them, and they opened for us for years, for years, and we did a lot of collaboration shows. Like we had lots of funny. We did tours with them, so we played all the time with them. We played one time in Valdez, Alaska, for a lot of snowboarding events, a lot of snowboarding festival kind of things with Pennywise and Blink and things like that. Like, yeah, one of our most random ones was in Valdez, Alaska, which was like the tiniest, weirdest little town that we were staying in, and playing this snowboard festival event. But yeah, we knew that they were in the shows. I mean, Elyse was particularly very good friends with Mark, um, but we were all good friends. I was good friends with Tom. We were, you know, we spent a lot of time in vans traveling together, and so we knew that. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys see yourselves at the time as like victims of that big evil major label corporation thing? Did they screw you guys over? Pull some shady shit in any way?
Yes, they did. But we also kind of, Elise has been our manager the whole time. She's the manager of the band, and she has been. Um, we were careful about how we did things very purposely. So where other people got kind of swept up into this like excitement, and we're gonna, make you famous, and then, here's a bunch of money, and then like they're dropping people. Although we got totally screwed by the label in several ways, which was mainly that just as two of our albums were coming out, they kind of restructured the whole system of like MCA and fired everybody, and then rehired a whole group of new people. So nobody was interested in following up on our album, like internally within the label, right? Because they had they were just, they want to make money on the next thing that's coming out because you get points and so on. So we got kind of screwed that way a couple times. It happened like just as our album was coming out twice. So things like
Ah,
that were really shitty. There were all these mergers happening right as as we were sort of, getting big, and then they were dropping bands and label, bands all over the place, like big bands. So in that sense, we were kind of right in that weird window. But on the other hand, I think there were a lot of very smart decisions that Elyse and the rest of us made, and we didn't want to be like a flash in the pan kind of thing. That Slayer song Queen for Day is kind of about that. It's like we were purposely didn't want to follow along some of these terrible ideas that they had suggested. Like one thing was always like, just do a cover song. And then once you do a cover song of some like, 80s or 60s song, then we'll follow up with like one of your originals. And we were like, no, I don't want to do that. Like it's just so cliche, and like other bands did that, and that's how they got kind of in the charts. And there were a lot of like shitty, stupid ideas that we rejected, and they didn't love us for that. but but I think, in the long run, we were careful about not, putting ourselves in this position where we would get this big push and then totally drop. So, it means that maybe we didn't get certain hits, but I think we played the game relatively well overall. We went back to independent labels that we love, like Fat Records, and everybody was try to kind of deal with what was going to happen with their careers, and some people were able to continue, and like Blink and so on. But I think it took us a special personality to figure out how to make that happen, and we had our own kind of aesthetic and decision making process that kept us doing the way we want to do it. So there was some fuck ups by them for sure, but we also made it out pretty well, I think.
Well, I just wanted the chance to say that I love all the Dancehall Crashers albums, obviously. But this Honey I'm Homely CD, this is one of my oldest CDs. I've had this for such a long time.
Nice.
And it's such a great album as well. Like it's got some chilled out stuff. It's got some rocking shit on here as well. Are there any standout tracks that come to mind for you from this one? I think it's my favorite, and I think we're almost at a 30th anniversary of this one
I
coming up.
know. What's your favorite? Which ones are your favorite?
Uh, L- Lost Again, such a great album opener. My favorite, oh, Whiskey and Gin.
I thought you were going to say that. That's what I was going to ask you.
I love Elvis and Me and Mr. Blue too. Is one of my favorite songs.
Aw, thanks. Yeah, I love Whiskey and Gin. It's funny because as we're doing these reunion shows, we never play that one live, and it was a really fun song to write and sing, and I hadn't listened to it in a while because it's when you I don't know, when you make albums, you just get kind of sick of them and you have to put them aside because you've just been working on them. So like sometimes it'll be like years that I haven't listened to any of that stuff. So it was fun to go back to that one because we don't play it live. It's just kind of too crazy to play live, but it was fun to listen back to that one and be like, yeah, I like that one. That was fun, and I like what we did here. It's a little different for us. But all the other ones that you mentioned, I love Mr. Blue, I love Lost Again, and yeah, I don't know. It was a fun album to make. I know that for me, I was writing some horn lines on there. I was writing a lot of stuff on that particular album. It's kind of a long record for us. And I think that we had a great producer and we had a great mixer. So Tim Palmer, who's like worked with Bowie and U2 and Tears for Fears and bands that I fucking love. So I mean, work with fucking Bowie, I mean, come on. So I think he really took it to really a great place too, because I was not always feeling like our records made sense. Like our live shows were so kind of dynamic and fun and full of energy, and I didn't feel like Lockjaw quite had that same feeling. It felt a little bit sterile to me as far as just like the final mix. I just didn't feel like it had the kick and the energy that we really do have live. But I feel like that Honey I'm Homely had just some great energy, and I think that that's a lot to do with how Tim Palmer was able to mix it too, because he's brilliant.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, Whiskey and Gin's one of my top favorites on that record. We just don't play it live, so it's kind of hard. So I was like, well, it's one of my favorites. But
It's such a good song.
Thank you.
Were there any music videos that came out of the first album?
No, we didn't do any for the first album. Wait, which one? Which one do you mean by the first album? Because Lockjaw was our first major, but then we had no. There's no videos from that.
Oh, okay.
We didn't do nothing. It was
So
just
there's
once we
only
got on a
about
major. Sorry, go ahead.
so there's only 3 or 4 music videos?
Yeah, we have enough. Lost Again, Mr. Blue. I think that's
Go.
it.
Go?
And Go. Sorry, yeah, Go.
Yeah. So we better move on to NoFX just in case we run low on time here. So
Okay.
so at what point did NoFX get onto your radar? Were you instantly fans of that band?
Yeah, I mean, we toured with them. I want to say as soon as like what year was it? 97, 8, something like that. We did Warp Tour with them. We toured in Europe with them, Warp Tour Europe. I think that's about when they got on my radar properly. And I mean, I knew about them before, but I didn't know them super well. So it was more after kind of getting more into that American punk scene in that way. So like, and I would say like about 95 is when they got kind of more on my radar. Because before that, I didn't know them that well. And then just like playing shows with them and then getting, I was an instant fan. I mean, they're always, I love Mike's songwriting. I think he's had some incredible, like really interesting stuff that he does, which I always appreciate as a songwriter. Of course, I loved all the reggae ska kind of stuff. And again, I think he's quite interesting with that. Things like Eat the Meek and um that's that I was singing backup on Eat the Meek with Billy Bouchard, who was our second guitar player for a while after and are touring with us. After Scott was in the band, Billy Bouchard was in the band for a while, and him and I used to get up on stage and sing with NoFX, sing Eat the Meek backup on tour when we were on Warp Tour and stuff. So, and then Mike and Melvin and they lived in San Francisco, and there was a big San Francisco music scene, and so like punk scene and Fat Records scene. So we were good friends that way too as well. So like yeah, I was kind of an instant fan because once I got into them, like Jason and Elyse were more knowledgeable about them because again they're California,
Yeah.
the kind of California scene, which I was still kind of getting my head around. So
Well, I suppose this one goes back to like the early days of punk rock and hardcore where, so many bands are singing about getting all fucked up on drugs and glorifying alcoholism and Fat Mike is one of those people that will get on stage and just glorify the hell out of that shit again and again
right.
until the point where, it becomes a problem for the band sometimes. How are you with that? Like, is that all jokes for you? Do you think that he ever took things too far doing that kind of thing? Because I thought we were going to wake up to the news one day that Fat Mike was dead because he took things a little bit too far.
Yeah. He's an extremist. He's a hedonist. In kind of every way. Mike is like, he didn't do any drugs until his mid-30s. So when everybody else was in the band was doing a lot more of that kind of stuff. So I think that once he kind of felt like things were going well with the band and he could have this new experimentation for him, then he started taking it too far. And I do think that yeah, it's he like I said, he's a hedonist. He'll do kind of things to extremes. In general, when he's exercising, he bikes 25 miles a day. When he's dieting or when he's doing anything that he does, he kind of goes into these extremes. That's kind of his personality. Um, but no, I don't love that he glorifies that. And neither do the other band members of NoFX. I know that's been problematic for them. I think he sort of believes that uh, there's some benefit to it, but I don't think that. Yeah, it's problematic for me. I don't think it needs to be glorified. And it, we have all worried about him at times. He's definitely gone far into things that are concerning. And especially for somebody like Smelly, who, has been sober for many years after heroin addiction. So that's not Mike's not ever done that. So, but it's still concerning. Yeah, I don't love it.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays, whenever Mike says, I'm sober, he'll say, I'm sober, but not really. So, what is the case right now? Like, is he sober?
I haven't seen him in a little while. I'm actually supposed to see him on Sunday. He definitely goes, as I said, he goes through, like, when he's being healthy, he's super healthy and he cuts everything out and will be like juicing and doing like super healthy lifestyle, like exercising every day. And I know right now he looks really well. I saw him a month or two ago and I've spoken to him on the phone, and we're still very good friends. And right now he's doing really well. I think touring was tricky for him, in part because of getting on stage. He felt like he had to get into this mode of like being the front person, being a performer. And as a front person myself, I will say there's a certain amount of pressure that you have to like take everything, and because you're speaking to the audience and you've got these big crowds and you have to bring this party and bring this like excitement to the whole crowd. It's a lot of pressure, and it's more pressure than being a side person or being the drummer. And I'm not saying that those are harder or not harder roles, but there's a different thing that you have to do as a front person that I think he felt like drug use was sort of necessary to bring him to that place for this short window of time, being on stage, right? So right now he's either totally sober or he's like very very minimal amount of drug use and that kind of stuff, because he's just able to kind of get back into a nice routine of being healthy. So that was one of his reasons to want to back off of playing. And it's hard to understand that if you're not a performer, but the thing is, there's this high intensity that you get when you're on stage, and it's, in my opinion, a totally understandable that many musicians become addicts, because you have this like crazy adrenaline that happens for 45 minutes or an hour. And when you have to like pump yourself up to this moment, and then you have to give it your all and give it this kind of incredible like energy for the stage, and the adrenaline kicks in and you're like high. And then when you get off stage, for some people that's a really tricky come down. And I think that for him, with these big shows, with these big stages, this expectation of he's got to be funny, it's got to be like charismatic, he's got to do a good job, like it's a lot of energy, and you're really buzzing. It's a kind of a crazy experience, right? You're like hyper alive. And I think that for him, he felt like to get to that place, he had to do some drugs to get up there.
Well, I mean, on that very subject, we have the song Alcoholic. Or, no, it's not
Yeah.
alcoholic, is it? It's I Want to Be an Alcoholic.
Um,
Uh,
yeah. It's called I'm an
yeah,
alcoholic,
because there's
because there's two
alcoholic, I
different
Want to
there's
Be
two
an Alcoholic. There's too many
yeah,
alcoholics.
exactly.
But what could you tell us about the recording process of Coaster for you? Like, do you get a call one day? Are you
Yeah,
meeting up
so
in person? How do you get
so I think
connected?
I've kind of become the just to backtrack a tiny bit, which is that I am not promoting drug use as a way to get on stage and do this, but I'm saying that I think that that's one of the main reasons he wanted to be also done, was that he felt like he couldn't control that as easily, and he didn't want to have to be doing drugs. So he's in a much healthier place, and I think that's a really positive reason that he is not doing. And I'm not a drug user, so I'm not happy about the fact that he did that, and I think he's in a much better place, and I think it's good. So I'm happy for him that he was like, I need to take this off my life and off my table. Okay, back to what you just asked. Coaster. So Coaster, they were recording another album at Motor Studios, which is a San was their recording studio in San Francisco, and he asked me to come and sing on it. I had been kind of becoming, I had sung on Mattersville and played vibraphone on Mattersville, for example, and um, I kind of had become like the Fat Records, like, you know, female vocalist call up. So I, sang on Tony Sly stuff. I sang on No Use stuff. I sang on like a High Standard song. I sang on Limp. I sang like lots of people just guesting. Joey Cape song, um, the Gimme Gimmes. So I kind of was just like doing a lot of stuff with those guys. So he just gave me a call, and he knew I was doing. He would see my bands locally that I was doing that were a little bit more, kind of loungy and like kind of a little bit of kind of a jazzy kind of sound, and my original music, which combines a few different styles of music, but I kind of pull in this kind of jazzy voice. And so he wanted me to do something like that on this song. So he was like, just do this, do this. And whenever I've worked with him on Home Street Home and other projects, sometimes he'll say like, just fucking do that bluesy thing or do that jazzy thing. He kind of like, he's very funny to work with as a producer, and he's mean, but I don't mind it. It's very
Well,
funny.
that's
No,
passion,
not
though.
that. Go. Why did you do that?
Oh, he's
Well, what
passionate
do you
about
want me
that
to do,
stuff.
Mike? Huh?
He's passionate about it.
Yeah, but he's also incredibly specific. Like, it's if not every producer is that way. They'll be like, he's very like, don't sing this. Da, na, 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 na. So like a long phrase. And he'll be like, no, that third note, change it to this. And so that's kind of tricky because it's like, just sing it. Like, do you mean da na na na? No. Da na na na. No. Da na na na. No. Da na 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 na. Yeah, do that. And then you're like, oh shit, I have to remember that. So I'm saying it's like in a long phrase, he'll be like, that one note there. Just do something. Anyway, he's funny. He's funny to work with.
So, was he directing you like that back then with Coaster?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And are other band members around at that time? Like, are they watching the vocal performance? Do things get weird if that happens?
No, at that point, usually, the band is gone. They've done their tracks, and I'm just doing the additional voice. So it's just me, him, and engineer usually. Maybe somebody will be around if they just happen to be in town, or someone had done. Maybe it's possible someone was adding guitar tracks or overdubs. But you tend to sort of like do the whole band, do all that, and then like he has an idea for like, I want you to add something to this, Karina. So I come in as one of the last things before mixing gets done.
And I can imagine that was the same case with First Ditch Effort. Was that kind of like the same process? Were you an official member of the band by that point?
Yeah, he was calling me an official member of the band. It's definitely a little tricky because obviously they've been together for over 40 years at this point, just about 40 years. So um yeah, for First Ditch Effort, I was actually in the studio with people a little bit more. That's true. And also for the Frank Turner split. But generally, it's still kind of like, as a vocalist, you always kind of come near the end if you're doing harmonies or something like that. But Hefe and I did a few like dual vocals at the same time, like harmonies together on some of those tracks. That was really fun. First Ditch Effort was really fun. Yeah,
Well, I remember when I
fun.
heard that
Yeah.
album for the first time, and it's not one of my favorites. Like most new NoFX albums, I really love half the album. Hey, half album. But most fans will tell you the old ones are the best. Like, you know that. But when I
Mm-hmm.
heard your vocals, that screaming vocal part on the Tony Sly song,
Mm.
I was like, shit, this is
Oh,
so good.
thank you.
Like, I hope she's an official member of the band by this point, like she should be.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was like, I think when I did that, I wasn't an official band member. Now I'm thinking about when I actually sang that song. But yeah, that was one of those instructions where he was just like, fucking go for it. And then I was sort of going for it. And he's like, no, just fucking break my heart. Like, he gets really like, do this, do that. So I was like, he was like, just fucking scream it and like, go all the way, go all the way. And so, yeah, he's good. He's great as a producer, and for reasons like that, which is like, maybe I would have been a bit tamer or a bit less, I wouldn't have given quite that thing. And he's just like, "Ah, just go for it." And I don't always sing like that, so it was a nice, like, okay, let's try it. And yeah.
Well, were you able to be creative in the studio with NoFX? Like, were you writing stuff at the time?
Well, no, I don't write anything per se, but when I'm working with Mike, a lot of it is back and forth. Like he'll say, sing something jazzy or sing something soulful, like on the Frank Turner split, for example. Or, he'll say, just do a thing that you do, Karina, that's this way or that way or this way. And I mean, see, even with that Tony Sly section that you're talking about, that screaming, part of that is something that he's just like, go for something. So I get creative in that way, and then he'll be like, "Yes, I like that," or "Let's take that first half that you did, and now try something totally different for the second half." So a lot of those lines I'm singing. He won't come up with those bluesy things. that's not that's not his that's not his thing, right? So he doesn't know how to sing jazzy or bluesy. So any of that kind of stuff that so any of the soulful things are usually things that I just come up with, but he might just be like, don't change that last note or do something different here. Or let's, you know. So we're collaborating together a lot. And the same thing for Home Street Home. All the records, a lot of those parts have been taken over by other actor singers that redid some of those parts, but a lot of those things I wrote with him, like the vocal characters that I was portraying. So
Yeah. Well, so were you in the studio for the single album and the double album thing?
Banned from the bar, and barred from the club by the cops.
not really. There was just a couple of little things, and some of that I think was during COVID. So I recorded some here with Desmond Shea, who's my partner. So we did a couple of vocal recordings here in the house, in our studio setup. Desmond Shea is a great engineer and producer, and is my partner. And we did a couple things here during COVID times. And then I think I did one studio session. We did one thing. Oh, it's just funny. We did one thing at like a backstage, like backup vocals that me and Hefe were doing backstage at a rehearsal that we just had a recording set up by a different engineer. So there's been a couple of like, well, because Mike moved to LA and then he moved to Vegas and there was COVID and like there was all these like moving around things. So we did some recording together, and then if he was in a different city and it was COVID. So yeah, it was a little bit goofy. So I've done some recording in LA with him, early COVID days or just before COVID. We were doing a bunch of recording at his studio that was in LA with Hefe and everybody, and that was. But then things change. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I don't get about the First Ditch Effort album cover is, am I missing something here? Do we know what this is about?
I do not know anything about what that album cover is about.
Okay.
But couldn't tell you.
So, what do you make of the recent album covers? Because I think they're really blowing it with these album covers. I mean, look at this. There's so many better album covers. Like, what is going on, Karina?
I'm gonna just no comment on that.
Well, do you have a favorite or a funniest NoFX cover?
What's your favorite? I think the White Trash, Two Heaves and a Bean actually is probably my favorite, to be honest.
Mine's Eating Lamb.
Yeah. So that's pretty funny. But I think the White Trash one for me, I don't know, just because I know them well, and it's like this, it's like the backstage, on the bus, whatever jokes are constant. They just do not stop with their like giving each other shit about being Jewish, being, I mean, like, being Mexican, being all that shit, white trash. It's like ongoing. And so to me, for some reason, that particular album cover, I don't know. It still kind of makes me chuckle. It's totally stupid, lowbrow, shitty humor. But why? I don't know why it still makes me laugh. So I mean, I think that's one of the reasons I'm able to be in that band, is because I think stuff like that is funny. It's just really stupid. It's maybe
Well,
not the best album cover, but I just happen to like it.
well, one of my favorite newer NoFX jokes is I heard it recently in maybe one of the last shows. Fat Mike says on stage, he goes, "Who's actually a fan of our band? Because we've got a real life Mexican."
So bad. He's so terrible. The thing is, Hefe is so fucking funny, and so that like I just know that like Mike, like he just like met his match, and it was so great. Like that's the thing. That's the thing I love about Mike, because I know some other bands that are quite funny, but like if the lead person is getting made fun of, he loves to dish it out. I'm talking about other groups. They don't like to get it back, and that's the thing I love about Mike is that he'll just like he loves it when you just fucking slay him, and he's just like, oh, like he just I think that's great. Just like give him shit. And sometimes he'd come on stage in a dress, a blue dress and blue hair, and be like, Hefe will be like, you look like a pregnant Smurf. And he's like, and he just fucking thinks it's hilarious. And so he'll introduce himself as a pregnant Smurf and shit like that. So
Have they ever crossed a line with any of these jokes for you? Like, if that's even possible, can they cross a line with you? Because I know even band members have said things to Mike in the past, like maybe keep that story to yourself, with his
yeah,
sexual perversities, however you want to word it. Like, are you cool with that stuff? Does it ever go too far?
I mean, I know Mike very well, and he's very open about that stuff. Which I, which I think is, I think there's something to be said for that. Like a lot of people hide that kind of thing, and I think that the fact that he's pretty open is interesting. Um, Definitely, they go too far on a few things. On stage, there are things that they do, like whenever there's a kid in the audience, they love to tell a few disgusting jokes that I'm not really into. They've definitely gone too far at times, in my opinion, but overall, I think that it's okay to push boundaries, and I think you have to do that. And I think you don't have to, but I think I appreciate that people do that. I think that it's okay to talk about your sexual preferences if you want to. uh it's not what I would do, but I appreciate a lot of things about what they've done and what they do. And the fact that he wears a dress sometimes I know is really tricky for some of the band members, but then I kind of think that's interesting and cool that he did it, and kind of showed a lot of very machismo punk rockers that it's okay to do something different and be who you are. And having a rainbow flag kind of on the keyboard for so many years when basically everyone's straight in the band, but we've had this, you know, this flag and this representation has meant a lot to a lot of people. And so, I think it kind of goes together. Like sometimes you have to go too far in order to kind of make a statement. And but yeah, there are definitely things that I do not agree with, that I would not say, and that I don't love. That being said, some of the things that they get criticized for, I don't think are that bad, or I think are not. I think that there is a very dark humor that they have, and I think that you know, as Americans, I'll just say, coming from England, that Americans are a bit more uptight with their humor generally. And I think English people, like overall, and I think that it's good to be able to have that sense of humor that they have had all the time, and sort of push and be a little bit uncomfortable. I think that's actually been a very good thing for this community, because a lot of punk bands are too stringent and like too serious, and I think it's been good to just be like fuck it all, like let's like shake it up a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of things I find overly offensive.
Well, what's your take on the way that cancel culture has worked its way into punk rock? Because I would have never thought that that would ever happen. And then obviously there was the comments in Vegas. Like, what was your take on that whole
Right.
situation? Are you kind of feeling like you wish people would just back off with that stuff sometimes?
Well, that whole situation was a bit tricky, because I remember when it happened, when he said that, and I was like, oof. because I think it was Melvin that actually said it, but it was like a back and forth between Mike and Melvin that was a joke. It was tricky because it didn't come out till a few days later, and it was this window of time where there was kind of this, Republican Democrat kind of like they were trying to sort of like attack certain people. There was a lot of things happening in that moment that I don't think I think are part of the story that aren't kind of looked at. Um, the cancel culture thing is tricky. I think that it's always been a part of punk rock, right? I mean, everybody's been like the Sex Pistols were so fucking shocking at the time, and it was like the punk, Kings Road, the punk rockers, the punk scene, Mohawks, Mohicans, etc. That was just all felt totally shocking. Safety pins were shocking. I mean, it was just like the whole thing, putting safety pin through your ear. So the thing is, it's going to be always part of the punk rock kind of aesthetic. And I think we should be pushing boundaries a little bit, right? So then cancel culture, I agree, it becomes really problematic, but then one has to be aware that there's been a lot of misogynistic fucking shit, and a lot of women have been, so there's like that part of it which we have to be aware of, and I think it actually is good to talk about some of that, whether or not it's always directed correctly, and whether the cancel culture thing can go too far, just like anything. But I do believe that there are some fucking shitheads out there, and some abusive people that, I don't know. I've not personally had to deal with too much of that, but I've seen a lot of shit, and I appreciate that some of these people are getting called out, to be frank.
So, just to backtrack slightly to the DHC days, because I've got the live DVD, which is awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
I think there's a couple of tracks on here that you announce on stage haven't been recorded yet. Like that song, Don't Call in the Middle of the Night No More. Like, has that never been recorded or released, ever?
No, well, sorry, we did record it, but we did not release it. We have not released it, and we probably won't. I'm not sure if we're ever going to do anything with that. I know there's a little
It's
bit
a
of
great song, though.
I love that song. I think that it's not a favorite of everybody's. And it's hard to know where we're going right now. We decided to do some shows, which was total shocker to me. And we're gonna take it one day at a time, I think. So I love that song. There's a few songs we recorded that we never released. I don't think that they're a good compilation of everything. Like, if we were gonna ever release something more, I think that there's needs to be some rounding out of music within that group of songs, like maybe a couple more, but we have no plans to write. I don't know if it'll ever happen. This is really kind of taking an opportunity right now to do some shows. Everybody's, in good health and is in a good place in their life, and they can take time to make this happen, which are these shows, which is in itself kind of shocking, because I've had a lot of good friends ask me, what you guys gonna come on, you guys are gonna do a reunion. I was like, nope, it's not gonna happen. I really didn't think it was gonna happen. So people are very busy. They have their uh, extremely busy lives. They have kids, they have run businesses, all kinds of things. So the fact that we're even making this happen it's a lot of like juggling time, schedules, families, et cetera, work. Will we ever release that record? I don't know. It was
Ah.
we only did like
Do you have it? Can you send it to me?
no, I can't send it to you.
Oh,
You can get it on the DVD.
I know, but
I love that song too. I love that one. Don't call in the middle of the night no more. I know, I love that song.
it's so good. It's so good. But since DHC are playing again, are we picking up where we left things off? Is it all the same band members? Are we bringing any ex-band members back? Are they going to rejoin you on stage for some reunions?
When we left, the primary band members, which is five of us, are the people that are doing, the shows coming up, which is myself and Elyse, Jason, Gavin, who are brothers, Jason and Gavin, who are brothers, and Mikey Weiss, our bass player. Same group that had been pretty much since the early '90s or mid '90s, the band. So we are bringing all the same people that no extra members, meaning from the past. We are going to have a guest guitar player on a few songs, which is John Graber, who is playing with NOFX as well. He's going to be our playing a few extra songs with us on stage, but mostly it'll be the five of us, and we are not bringing anyone else back at the moment. As I said, we're kind of taking it day by day. So things that keep getting added are really just if we have fun doing this, maybe we'll add more, but we may not. And that's true. Like like I'm telling you, like we thought we were just gonna do 2 San Francisco shows and do this Warped Tour couple of shows. And then we decided maybe we will do one more. And so we added a Los Angeles show as a sort of warm up to doing Riot Fest, which is a really big, obviously a massive show here because it's got Green Day and Weezer and Jawbreaker and Weird Al Yankovic and Jack White and all these people. So the Riot Fest show is,
Which I just found out about that show like the other day. Like you'd already confirmed the podcast, and I didn't even know that DHC was back. I had no idea about it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to happen. We decided in November, and literally 2 weeks before that, I had a friend who's a huge fan say, "Are you guys ever going to do a reunion? Come on, tell me." I said, "Nope, it's not going to happen." I said, "I mean, it's possible, but it's very, very unlikely." And then here we are. So, never say never.
Banned from the bar, and barred from the club, and clubbed by the cops for copying some drugs.
Well, about 2 or 3 years ago now, Fat Mike started talking about this NOFX movie, this documentary that was supposed to be happening. Is that still in process, or has that been knocked on the head now?
It's still in process. Yeah. It's still in process. These things take a long time. So I know they've been editing some stuff, and we did some interviews just after the shows, like a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago. So it's still working in process.
Okay, so that's exciting then.
Yeah.
And Home Street Home was supposed to be a TV show. Maybe there's a movie there. Is that still going ahead?
I have no idea. I cannot speak to that because it's totally not my, I don't know anything about where it's at the moment. Yeah. I'm sure we will find out soon.
So the biggest news was that NOFX is coming to an end after 40 years. I hear nobody tells Smelly about this. Like, did you hear about that before Smelly did?
No, it's not that nobody told Smelly. What happened was Mike had been saying that he wanted to be done with the band for many years. He'd been talking about it. He wanted to end it for a number of reasons, and the way that it was kind of announced was a little bit of a surprise, to be honest. And it had been a discussion, but they hadn't all come to this like full agreement at the same moment to be like, okay, we'll make this announcement. This is when it's going to happen. So yeah, Smelly was surprised, as were some of us, because Mike just said it like, yep, we're doing it. This is the date we're going to be done. And it was just a bit of a surprise for that reason. That's how it happened. So it wasn't that I knew it. I knew the same as Smelly and everybody. They had been in discussion. They just, as a 4-person band, had not made a clear commitment to when it was going to happen and if it was really happening, because the other guys weren't really wanting it to happen. But Mike was like, nope, I'm done. And this is.
Well, there seemed to be quite a lot of confusion around that subject, because half the band would say, no, this is it. It's done. That's it. There's nothing more. The other half would say, we're still going to be a band. We're still going to make albums. We're just not going to play live anymore. So is it done?
Yeah, I think that the thing is that Mike has a lot of songs that he wrote, and there may be that, there's going to be a documentary. There might be retrospectives. They might put out maybe, songs that that they hadn't released yet. I don't know. It's not, I'm not part of those conversations at all. Like, I'm part of the live band, and but I don't know all the dealings. I'm not on all the band meetings. I'm not that person that has all that information. And I think it's really up to them where they take the next step, if they start to do anything like that. But I mean, they have a documentary coming out. There's things like that that are going to continue to happen on and off, but they're not going to be playing live. They're not going to be doing the same schedule and the release albums in the way they used to. So things are totally different. They've completely changed. Whether there'll be some things coming down the line that are half done or need to get completed, and they want to, finish those up, then that might be the case. But I'm not in those discussions, and I don't know all the details of those things. I just genuinely don't know. Same as the other questions. I genuinely don't know.
That's fair enough then. So the Punk Rock Museum, have DHC been involved in that? Have you done any tours or anything?
Yeah, I just did a tour. It was just advertised. I did one in a couple months ago, and probably doing another one later this year, most likely in August. And it's great. We have a couple things up there. DHC does. We have some Warp Tour representation from doing Warp Tours. And I have a dress up there that I wore for the live DVD. My dress that I wore in that is there as part of their kind of little. They have some fashion little section. Yeah, it's great. Museum's awesome. It's fantastic, and they're continuing, like, changing. They have great exhibitions. They have great guests and tour guides. It was really fun to see it. It's very cool.
Yeah. So we're playing with DHC again. Has that excitement just come rushing back?
Yeah, it's a real trip to go back 20 years. it's, it's really an interesting experience to the funny parts are singing lyrics that you wrote and kind of go, what are these about? Oh yeah, about that person and that bloke and that fucking asshole. And oh yeah, it's all coming back to me, that shithead. No, but it is very funny to kind of relive some of these stories and some of these lyrics. But yeah, I am excited. It's going to be a trip. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I've had a lot of people ask us, and it's really fun to sing these parts and sing these harmonies and go back and hang out with everybody, and it was a fun time in my life, and so I'm looking forward to getting back on stage with these people and having fun. They're really fun songs to sing. They're really like sassy and sarcastic, and it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. We're having a good time. We've been rehearsing a lot, and it's good.
Well,
Yeah.
Karina, thank you so much for doing this. You're so fun to talk to.
Oh, geez, thanks.
And this has
Funny.
been one of the greatest podcast moments of my life. Like DHC, NOFX, like my all-time favorite bands. Like this means
Thank you.
something to me.
Well, thank you. It's been super fun.
Yeah. Hopefully we can stay in touch, and maybe you can hook me up with somebody else from NOFX. Maybe like Smelly hasn't said no, but he hasn't said yes.
That's about right. That sounds about right for Smelly. He's a very charming man, and he may keep you on the line for a long time. Just kidding.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you. Nice to talk to you, Jay.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
And you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.